Since SRAM has now launched its new updated Force groupset, that being their second-tier road groupset, it's only natural to wonder how it really stands up against its closest, biggest equivalent rival, that being Shimano Ultegra. It wasn't that long ago that Ultegra itself was also updated, so how do these two new kids on the block really stack up against each other? Well, today, that's what we're going to try and find out. I'm going to be comparing both group sets against these criteria, and hopefully by the end of the video, we should have one standout winner. So without further ado, let's get into it. Weight is a nice place to start, because when you can judge something purely on numbers, you have a better chance of being able to find a definitive winner. So, Shimano claims that its R8100 Ultegra group set with the power meter comes in at 2,763 grams. SRAM, on the other hand, claims that its like-for-like new Force Axis group set with the power meter comes in at 2,896 grams, 133 grams heavier. Do bear in mind though that claimed weights and actual weights can vary, so the 133 gram victory to Shimano might be quite a small one. On the face of it, price should also be a nice and easy one to compare, but in actuality, it may not provide a definitive winner. So let's take a closer look. In like-for-like specifications, the Shimano Ultegra R8100 group set comes in at £2,399. SRAM Force, on the other hand, comes in at £1,751. That's a whopping great difference of £648. At first, it does look like SRAM has taken it here. However, it depends on whether or not you want to factor in the running costs. It will cost more to replace the wearable parts on the SRAM group set compared to Shimano. We also have to think about the fact that the majority of people don't go out and buy a group set by itself. Instead, they purchase the bike with the group set that they want. So, how do Ultegra and Force-built bikes really compare? Since the Force group set is brand new, there aren't actually that many comparable models, but there are a couple which we'll look at. First, we've got the new Liv Envy Liv Advanced, which in a Force build comes in at £6,999, while the Ultegra version retails at £6,699. That's £300 less. The same goes for the new Cannondale Super 6 Evo. The Force build comes in at £6,750, while the Ultegra build comes in at £6,250. In this case, it's an even bigger drop at £500. Sure, in the case of the Cannondale, the wheels are ever so slightly different, with one being 50mm and the other being 45mm, but they're both still carbon and all the other specs are exactly the same. It's clear that in the real world, it's going to be fair to expect Force-built bikes to be more expensive than Ultegra ones, so I'm going to call this round a tie. SRAM Force is cheaper to buy but more expensive to maintain. Shimano, the exact opposite. Force-built bikes look to be more expensive than Ultegra ones, so it really does just depend on how you plan on acquiring the group set. A group set that is easy to live with is a good group set. And that can manifest in a few different ways. As both group sets are electronic, it means that both need recharging. Recharging the batteries on Force is very, very simple. You can pop the batteries off of the derailleurs and then pop them into the charging block. Better still, the new docks that SRAM have created mean charging is faster than ever before, and they've also come out with a multi-battery charger, so you no longer have to do one at a time. On the other hand, Shimano requires you to bring your whole bike to a power source and plug the rear derailleur in via their cable. Not exactly the most handy thing. Another aspect of modern day group set practicality is how easy they are to interact with. Both group sets have apps which can control them. This creates a portal for updates, customization, as well as setup and maintenance. Since both work and each have their own learning curve, I think this purely comes down to how easy it is to charge those batteries. So SRAM takes the win on this one. A true high point for the new generation of Dura-Ace and Ultegra are the new servo waves, which are fitted to provide effortless braking power. In my experience with this technology, I was able to scrub off tiny amounts of speed with little input, but with only a little extra effort, you're able to really slam on the anchors. The amount of control and modulation you have at your fingertips is rather remarkable, and it sets these two group sets apart from the others in the Shimano range, where you have to apply a lot more force to achieve the same level of power. Sram doesn't have this same tech, and it results in brakes that do feel rather normal. Sram also never made any claim to updating their braking technology for this new iteration of Force, and while it's not bad by any means, it's just not on the same level as Ultegra. Clearly, Shimano takes this round. Shifting speed is actually quite an interesting one. As claim times have decreased so much, it would be near impossible to actually measure. So instead, we've devised this simple test. The cranks will be spun at a gentle cadence, the shifter paddle will be held down continuously, and we'll see which group set can move the chain from the top of the block to the bottom in the shortest amount of time. Putting shifting speed to one side, I must say that both felt really smooth as I worked my way up and down the block. The shifts on both are near silent, smooth, and never jolted the cadence unduly. Regardless of the test results, they were always fast to engage, and neither was discernibly better or worse than the other. It's when you scrutinise the front mech shifting that things become a little easier to pull apart. Sram does have a bit of a history with fairly slow front mech shifting, or better put, not being as fast as Shimano. Sram shifting, while still functional, just takes those extra few milliseconds to make the change. When one has experienced both group sets, there is a noticeable gap between hitting both the paddles to initiate the shift on Sram, hearing the motor starting to move, and then feeling the change of cadence in your legs, confirming you have now shifted rings. The difference with Shimano is that the gap between pressing the button and hearing the motor is almost zero, and the change of cadence also comes that bit faster too. Since we are discussing milliseconds here, and as you can see from the test results, Sram is slightly faster coming down the cassette, I'm going to call this round a tie, but you may pull a different conclusion. The age-old game of judging something by how it looks is always a favourite of mine, only because it's purely subjective. In this case though, I am actually struggling to find a clear winner. To my eye, the majority of the Sram Force components do now look better, apart from the hoods, where I think the Ultegra hoods clinch it. If I could have the Force group set, but with the Ultegra shifters, then I think that would be my ideal scenario. But actually, if we're wishing for things here, I'd probably just go for the gloss black Dura-Ace shifters, and that would make for an even better pairing. In this instance though, I am going to give the win to Sram. I think they've just about inched ahead here, and a lot of that can be put down to that brand new chainset design. My wish for Ultegra hoods does actually go beyond just wanting them for how they look. Their shape and feel is undoubtedly better than the Force hoods. They feel more natural, and they have good sized shift paddles. The space behind the brake levers is generous, but more importantly, they don't limit you when you want to tuck up and ride aggressively. If you want to cup the reservoirs from the side, it feels really good to do so, and then you also have the benefit of having the buttons on top of the hoods, meaning you can adjust your gears while staying in the best position. But you can also cup the reservoirs from the tops and still maintain comfort. The Force hoods do feel very comfortable when riding in the normal position. Likewise, cupping the reservoirs from the side also feels good, but sadly, they do lack the shift buttons on top. Cupping the reservoirs from the tops isn't an option for me. Now, this could be down to the size of my hands, but for a product which is designed to be used by all, I really should be able to. The win is simple here. Shimano takes it. Both group sets have their own list of features, but they don't really differ a great deal. The Sram group set offers fully wireless blip shifters. You can attach 6 blips, or better put, 3 sets of blips. Since they are fully wireless, you can put them anywhere you like. However, the Shimano satellite shifters are wired. It's not a massive deal, but it does ever so slightly limit where you can place them. Both have easy to bleed brakes, and one is no longer more or less difficult than the other. I do still enjoy the ease of which you can perform a really fast top up on the Shimanos with those bleed buckets, but when doing the job properly, they're pretty well matched. One last difference that I'll pick up on is how the different group sets have gone about changing gears. On Shimano, you have a pair of buttons on each shifter, with each shifter controlling a derailleur. You press one to go up and the other to go down. However, on Sram, you press one button on one side to go up at the rear and one button to go down on the other shifter. And then when you want to change chainrings at the front, you press both together. Just from being so simple and always knowing where you stand with how the group set works, Sram absolutely takes the win here. The learning curve takes all of 1 or 2 minutes. As we can see from the graphic, if you look at the easiest and hardest possible ratios available from both brands, Sram does do a better job of encapsulating a wider spread of gearing. I paired the cassettes with the biggest sprockets to the chain sets with the smallest number of teeth for the ultimate climbing setup. And I then took the cassettes with the tighter blocks with the chain sets with the most teeth for the ultimate race setup. You can achieve a higher inch gear on Sram and also get an easier climbing gear with them too. Not forgetting that with Sram, you can also opt for one-by options. In Shimano's defense, while they may not match Sram in terms of sheer range, on their climbing setup at least, the jumps between the gears will be slightly smaller, meaning that changes in cadence will be less jarring. Overall though, it's a clear win for Sram here. Both group sets can be bought in a power meter configuration. Force can be bought with a Quark power meter, which is integrated into the chainrings. This has both positives and negatives. It's great for decreasing weight and increasing power efficiency. It's not so great for your wallet though. When the time comes to needing to replace your chainrings, the power meter also needs to be thrown away and then replaced with a new one. Not very cool. Alternatively, you can opt for a single-sided crank arm power meter upgrade instead and then continue to run a normal chainring setup. With Shimano, they too also offer a chainset-based power meter, but in this instance, you'll be able to enjoy the benefits of double-sided readings, but without being forced into throwing the tech away when your chainrings need replacing. Again, the Shimano chainset is more expensive to buy, but does represent better value in the long term. These group sets clearly run very close, and I think the gap narrowed significantly when Sram did release the update to their Force group set. I don't think it's unfair to say that the new Force is just what it should have always been. It didn't receive a huge number of updates, but the ones that it did get were really significant and brought it very close to Ultegra. Both group sets clearly have their strengths and their weaknesses, but it's down to you to decide what your priorities are. For me, the shifting and braking performance paired with the ergonomics of Ultegra make the compromises you have to make on practicality and price totally worth it. However, you may disagree. So which one would you choose? Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, then please do drop it a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll see you again very soon.